Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing another painting over my sketches video, and this time it's a scene from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, or the Chronicles of Narnia. This was requested on my last video, and as usual I will be taking requests for the most upvoted comments on this one. So if you guys have any, or if there are already suggestions that you like, make sure to like those comments. And yeah, so this one I can't actually show you guys the full sketch because this is the second time that I've done this sketch, and the first time it took me 5 days to try to work with the painting and it wasn't really working. And I also thought that if I was just gonna go ahead and really force myself to finish that video, I didn't think that I was gonna end up with something that I liked. And what actually didn't work out the most in that video was the sketch. I just thought that there were some fundamental things in the sketch that wasn't gonna work, and the only way that I was gonna be satisfied with the final results of that painting is if I had made it so different from the pen sketch, which I just didn't really like that idea. So on the 5th day, I just decided to scrap the whole thing and decided to try again. I didn't record the sketching process with the red pens because I was really tedious for this one, and I just wanted to get it right. After working so much on that last video, I was almost traumatized and I just wanted to get this right the first time. And so now you guys are only left to see the second layer of the pen sketch, and it's done with my G-Tech pen. I hope you guys aren't that disappointed. Next time I will be sure to include the sketching process, but for this time it just wasn't working. So what I really wanted to fix with my last sketch is most of the scene. I wanted them to interact more in the painting, and with my last painting they weren't really interacting that much, so I wanted them to interact more. I thought the scene was really sweet, and that's why I decided to paint it. So I really wanted to get some of that interaction between them because that is what I loved most about the scene. So I wanted to get that in my sketch, and I think I did get it, and I was really happy with the sketch that I started with when I started this painting. When most of the trouble started was when I started painting and choosing the colors for it. So I wanted to show you guys how I mixed the brightest highlight, and that was supposed to be Lucy's cheek. And I was supposed to base the values at least on both of them. I'm completely just dismissing the background at this point, but I was supposed to base the values on that cheek. So I started with the brightest highlight and then adjust everything else from there. And what I learned most about my last painting is that I thought that one was just too bright. I didn't really like painting too much with the white. I felt like just every single highlight in that scene I was using pure white, which I think just made the values all wrong. So for this time I started with the white, and you guys might have seen in my mixing stage I wanted that highlight to be not as bright so that the snow could stand out on top of it. So yeah, it was really important to get their values light so that I could paint the snow in the background and make that part of the scene too. So I couldn't really at first understand the colors in the scene. They were in the snow, but in my particular screenshot they actually felt kind of pinkish, I think. I did try to get that from the start with their skin tones, but you guys will see later on that I do add a lot of blue in the background, and I really ended up liking that addition later. But actually for them, the characters in the foreground, I really wanted to stick to the screenshot. And Lucy's face especially, I don't know, I wanted to apologize, especially in the beginning stage. Lucy's faces didn't at all look like her, which is such a shame because I just thought that she was so adorable in the movie. I actually thought that her face was going to be the easiest part of this scene, and that's why I started with her. I knew this scene was going to be a lot bigger than all the other scenes in the series. I'm filling out 2 pages and there's 2 characters, which is the first time that I've done this, I think. So I knew this video was gonna take long, and so I started with something that I thought was gonna be easy, but actually just Lucy's face took me such a long time, and the only reason why I didn't give up on it this time was because I've already done that with my last painting and I didn't want to scrap a whole video again, so I just pushed through with this one. And actually for most of the recording in this painting, I think about 2/3 of that time was just spent on Lucy's face. And I wish I was exaggerating, but even as I moved on to the rest of the painting, every single time I would paint another part of the piece, I would look at her face and it just didn't look right. So every single time I moved on from another part of the scene, I would go back to her face and just chisel it a little bit more to look more like the photo. It was very tedious, and still to this day, I don't know why her face stumped me the most. I think it's something to do with me not painting children that much, but I also don't paint a lot of men, so I was expecting to have a hard time painting Mr. Tumnus's face, but that one didn't actually take me that much time, and it was the same for my last attempt. I think if I had to guess, it's because I really wanted it to look like the actress that played Lucy, because I really love the casting in the 4 siblings. I just think that they all look so much alike, and I thought it was so good that they found all of these actors that actually looked like they were siblings. But I just really wanted this to look like the actress that played Lucy, and so I think I was psyching myself out with it. With Mr. Tumnus, I didn't really care that much if it would look like James McAvoy, which I didn't know that was James McAvoy who played him. That was probably the biggest surprise with me watching the movie again, was that I didn't realize that it was him playing Mr. Tumnus, and I thought that was just really funny. But going back to the point, I didn't really care if the painting would look like him. I also think that he maybe had some prosthesis on his nose, so there was less pressure for me to make it look like the actor. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed painting this piece. I didn't have the frustration I felt while I was doing the first attempt. I just felt like I was stressing out so much at that time, and I wasn't even enjoying the painting anymore. So for this one, even though I had a hard time painting Lucy's face right, I was just having so much fun painting everything else. And even while I took so much time painting Lucy's face, I actually did really enjoy painting her too. So as soon as I felt like I was in a good place to move on from painting her face, I really even enjoyed painting her dress. I love all of the colors on it. I can't explain why, but I just love the color of her cardigan and her dress together. When I moved on to Mr. Tumnus, it was okay. It came by really fast. I think that I maybe spent an hour painting the entirety of Mr. Tumnus. So to give you guys a better idea, I think I would say I spent about 5 hours painting the whole thing. So to only spend 1/5 of that on the character that's taking up the most space is just crazy. And I don't know, I just really finished him really fast, and I enjoyed painting him too. And with his skin tone, I feel like I was in a better place. I calibrated myself to the scene better, especially with struggling with Lucy's face so much. I felt like I finally got a hold of the pinkish undertone of the scene, and I finally got to paint his skin tone right. The only time where I got frustrated a little bit while painting him was painting his fur, or is it hair, on his body. I didn't know what to do with it. I realized that I've never painted fur before. Another thing I wanted to talk about was just how hard it really is to paint lighter colors with the Mia gouache. In most of the videos in this series, I've always had this feeling where I wish I was painting with my Holbein gouache, just because when I'm not doing the series, I would use that gouache, and it always strikes me how much easier it is for me to paint lighter colors with it. But in the other videos in the series, I would always feel that somewhere about halfway through, or maybe even towards the end, because that is when I need the colors to be the most accurate. And it's also when I'm figuring out how to finalize the colors in the scene. And so usually I get frustrated by that, but it's always about the end of the video where I feel that. With this one, I felt that right away. For one, because I think this is the lightest scene in the whole series. I'm always drawn to darker sort of scenes. Especially in movies, I would always be tempted to draw the night scenes, and I'm always curious at how, I guess, cinematographers would light up their night scenes. But for this one, not only is it in broad daylight, but it's also a winter scene, so there's so much snow, there's so much white in the scene, and so it's very hard to actually mix the colors that would distinguish themselves from each other while still maintaining their very light values. But I did eventually get it. I just feel like I took so many detours for me to get there, where I think it would have been easier for me to do if I had used my Holbein gouache. So when I started painting the background, there was something that was almost like an accident that really set the tone for how I was going to paint the background, and maybe even some elements of the characters in the foreground. It was when I started mixing in the blue with my browns to paint the trees and the other darker things in the background. But when I started mixing in the blue, and Mia gouache sort of has this thing where if you don't properly mix it in with your brush, you sort of get these streaks of the colors not mixing with each other that well. So when I started painting with that mixture, I just fell in love with how I could still see that blue in there. And I felt like as soon as I saw that, I knew where I was going to take this painting. I mean, the screenshot had a lot of yellow and maybe pink undertones to the whites. For this one, I added in some blue accents to the scene, and I also adjusted everything else to work with that. And so in his body hair, for example, I used that same blue to get these cooler grays in there instead of the warmer grays that is in the original scene. And so yeah, I really love how that was one thing that I didn't plan in the scene, and that is also my most favorite part of this whole painting. I just really like that effect. I also added a lot more detail to the background on this one. In the other videos in the series, I always kept the background to be very vague. I didn't want to take away from the details of the character, but for this one, I wanted there to be depth in the elements of the background, and so I spent a little bit more time than I expected with this one. But I actually really enjoyed it. I loved painting the background on this one, and I felt like after I've painted that, I would know where to go with the characters, because with this one I actually didn't know where to stop, because it's a much bigger piece than my other ones in the series. I didn't know how finished I was gonna take it, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I just really didn't know if I was spending too much time focusing on little parts of the piece when I really shouldn't, and forgetting the overall composition in the process, which is something that happens with me. But with this one, since I enjoyed painting the background so much and I knew exactly where to stop with it, I could also then take that same level of detail and just apply it to the characters. So yeah, I really love this scene. When I look at it, I just can't believe how far I've come from that first try. I know it's not that much and it's not that serious, but I'm so happy with how this came out. I love the colors on it. I think I could maybe tweak some little things about Lucy's face just because I really want her to look more like the actress. But other than that, I feel like I wouldn't change anything else in this scene, which is something that I can't say for all of my videos in this series. So yeah, I'm really happy with this one, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching me paint it. So that will be it for this video too. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me, and I will be seeing you guys again soon.